Hey guys, tonight we're going to sink into the ancient world of Java, a place where kings weren't just rulers but cosmic choreographers, and where rain wasn't just water falling from the sky. Imagine, if you will, the heavy, humid air of a tropical island, thick with the scent of frangipani and something deeper, something earthy and sweet. You're standing on a carved stone terrace, the jungle pressing in around you, alive with the chirping of cicadas and the distant calls of unseen birds. Below, a vast crowd hushes, their eyes fixed on a raised dais, where the king, resplendent in silk and gold, prepares to perform a ritual. He's not just praying for rain, he's commanding it, or at least that's the idea, and not just any rain-perfumed rain. Yes, you heard that right. Water imbued with the essence of rare spices and fragrant blossoms, believed to cleanse, purify, and ensure the very fertility of the land and its people. You probably won't survive the sheer boredom of this, but who knows, perhaps the ancient aromatic secrets will lull you into a deeper sleep than any modern sleep aid. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, maybe drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself transported, not by plane, but by the slow, deliberate turn of the earth beneath your quiet home, back through centuries to a land shrouded in mist and myth, ancient Java. Picture the air itself, not just warm, but weighted with an almost tangible humidity, a characteristic that defines this equatorial island. It clings to your skin, a gentle, invisible blanket that never truly dissipates. In this primal embrace, the ground beneath your bare feeties, you're definitely barefoot in this immersive historical daydream, feels cool and slightly damp even through the dry season. The sounds are different here too. Not the hum of distant traffic or the sigh of your air conditioning, but the ceaseless drone of insects, a symphony of cicadas reaching a crescendo as dusk approaches, punctuated by the occasional guttural call of a macaque or the rustling of unseen creatures in the dense foliage. This isn't just a tropical paradise, it's a living, breathing entity, and the people who lived here understood that connection on a profound, almost instinctual level. For them, every rustle of leaves, every burst of rain, every eruption of a volcano, and Java has quite a few, as you'll soon discover, was a direct communication from the divine. You're not just an observer. You're an ancient Javanese peasant, perhaps, or a minor courtier, acutely aware of the delicate balance of your world. The kings whom we'll be spending a lot of time with tonight weren't simply rulers in the way we understand them today, signing decrees and shaking hands. Oh no. Their role was far more grand, far more mystical. They were the very linchpins of existence, the human connection between the tangible world you're now inhabiting and the unseen realms of gods and spirits. Their health, their actions, their very breath were believed to directly influence the well-being of the cosmos. No pressure, right? Imagine waking up every day, knowing that if you messed up, the rice crop might fail, or a volcano might burp something far worse than ash. It adds a certain weight to morning coffee, doesn't it? And in this cosmic dance, perfumed rain wasn't just a pleasant meteorological anomaly. It was a potent, deliberate act of magic and governance. Think of it not as a whimsical addition, like putting a little umbrella in your cocktail, but as an essential ingredient, a vital component of profound ritual. This wasn't merely about making things smell nice, though I'm sure it was an olfactory delight. It was about purification, about invoking fertility, about placating the powerful deities who govern the land and its people. Historians still argue whether the fragrance was merely symbolic or truly believed to enhance the spiritual potency of the water itself. Either way, for the ancient Javanese, this was serious business, the very fabric of their spiritual and agricultural survival woven into the mist of these fragrant downpours. You can almost feel the anticipation building, the collective breath held, as the king prepares to conjure this miraculous, scented blessing. Now, let's talk about the stage upon which these scented dramas unfolded. Java itself. You're still there, feeling the volcanic earth beneath your feet. This island isn't just land. It's a living, breathing testament to geological power, a long, sinuous spine of towering volcanoes, both active and dormant. Imagine looking up, way up, past the emerald canopy of the jungle, to see the majestic, conical peaks piercing the perpetually hazy sky. Some, like Mount Merope, are still grumbling, reminding everyone who's boss. You can almost feel the faint tremor in the ground, a low thrumming that's more sensation than sound, a constant reminder of the incredible forces shaping this land. This isn't just a geographical detail. It's the very bedrock, literally and metaphorically, of ancient Javanese beliefs. See, for the ancient Javanese, these volcanoes weren't just mountains, they were sacred abodes of powerful deities, gateways to the underworld, and sources of immense spiritual energy. You can almost picture the wisps of smoke curling from a distant crater as a god taking a lazy morning stretch. When one of these giants rumbled, it wasn't just a natural phenomenon, it was a divine pronouncement, a sign of anger, or perhaps a call for appeasement. This constant interplay with powerful, unpredictable natural forces fostered a deep reverence for the land and its inherent power. It shaped their cosmology, their myths, and crucially, their rituals. They didn't just live on the land, they lived with it in a continuous, intimate dialogue. The fertile volcanic soil, enriched by millennia of ashfall, made Java incredibly productive. You can practically see the vibrant green of the rice paddies stretching out, terrace after terrace, like giant emerald staircases carved into the hillsides. This agricultural abundance, directly linked to the volcanic activity, reinforced the belief that the land was blessed, a gift from the very gods who resided in those fiery peaks. It created a society deeply rooted in agriculture, where the success of the harvest meant life itself. And what does a good harvest need? Rain, of course. But not just any rain. Controlled, predictable, benevolent rain, which brings us back to those perfumed rituals. The entire worldview of the ancient Javanese was essentially an elaborate cosmic feedback loop. The gods provided the fertile land and the life-giving rain, and in return, humans, particularly the kings, had to perform the correct rituals, offer the appropriate tributes, and maintain a state of spiritual purity. It was a quid pro quo with the divine, except the quid involved a lot more chanting and less paperwork. You might chuckle at the idea of such a direct causal link between royal rituals and volcanic eruptions, but to them it was as logical as the sun rising in the east. Historians still argue whether the perceived connection between volcanic activity and royal legitimacy was purely symbolic, or if there were genuinely attempts to interpret every geological event as a divine message for the king. It probably depended on how good the harvest was that year. If crops were failing, suddenly that distant puff of smoke looked a lot more ominous. This intimate relationship with their volatile yet generous landscape, bred a profound sense of dependence and respect. You wouldn't simply build a house wherever you pleased. You'd consult omens, spirits, and the very lay of the land. Every hill, every river, every imposing peak held a story, a spirit, a connection to the grand tapestry of existence. The perfumed rain, then, wasn't just a pleasant atmospheric event. It was a physical manifestation of this sacred contract, a blessing descended from the volcanic heavens, infused with the very essence of the bountiful earth and the diligent efforts of their king. It was a multi-sensory experience that solidified their beliefs and reaffirmed their place in the universe. Imagine the feeling of that scented mist on your face, knowing it carried the blessing of the mountain gods themselves. Pretty intense, right? Far more exciting than your average drizzle, that's for sure. With the volcanic stage set, let's turn our attention to the star of the show, the Javanese kings. You're still there, perhaps now observing from a slightly more privileged vantage point, maybe as a court scholar or a particularly observant temple attendant. These weren't just monarchs in the European sense, with crowns and sceptres and a fondness for tax collection. Oh no, their role was far more profound, far more cosmically significant. They were understood to be cosmic conductors, living bridges between the human realm and the divine. Think of them as the ultimate spiritual Wi-Fi router, ensuring a strong, stable connection between heaven and earth. In ancient Java, the concept of kingship was deeply intertwined with spiritual authority. A king's legitimacy wasn't just about military might or inherited lineage, though those certainly played a part. It was primarily about his ability to maintain harmony within the kingdom, harmony with the natural world, and most importantly, harmony with the gods. You can almost feel the weight of that responsibility, the constant pressure to perform, to ensure the cosmic gears kept turning smoothly. If things went wrong, a drought, a plague, a particularly grumpy volcanoid wasn't just bad luck. It was often seen as a reflection of the king's spiritual efficacy, or lack thereof. Talk about a tough performance review. This meant that the king's daily life, his personal conduct, and especially his public rituals, were all imbued with immense spiritual significance. He wasn't just ruling, he was performing his kingship, enacting the cosmic order. The elaborate ceremonies, the grand processions, the intricate offerings, these weren't mere displays of wealth, though they certainly were that too. They were active engagements with the divine, carefully choreographed acts designed to appease, to invoke, and to ensure the continued blessings of the heavens. It was a bit like a very high-stakes, ancient Javanese interpretive dance with the fate of the kingdom hanging in the balance. The perfumed rain rituals, then, were among the most critical performances in this royal repertoire. By invoking the rain, and by imbuing it with sacred fragrances, the king was demonstrating his unique connection to the divine. He was showing that he could literally bring blessings from the sky, a tangible manifestation of his cosmic power. Imagine the awe of the common people, witnessing their king seemingly command the elements, especially after a long dry spell. It would be far more convincing than any political speech, wouldn't it? Behold, I have brought you scented rain. Now, about those taxes. This concept of the king as a cosmic conductor wasn't unique to Java. It has echoes in many ancient civilizations, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the emperors of China. But in Java, with its volatile volcanic landscape and its reliance on monsoon rains, this role took on a particular urgency and intensity. Historians still argue whether the Javanese kings genuinely believed they possessed such direct control over natural phenomena, or If these rituals were primarily sophisticated tools for political legitimation and social cohesion, perhaps it was a bit of both, a blend of sincere spiritual conviction and shrewd statecraft. After all, if you can make it rain perfume, you can probably get people to do what you want. You can almost see the king now, meticulously preparing for the ritual, not just as a ruler, but as a high priest, a living conduit. Every gesture, every utterance, every piece of his elaborate regalia was designed to amplify his connection to the divine. It was a heavy crown to wear, far heavier than its gold and jewels suggested, burdened by the spiritual well-being of an entire kingdom. And as you watch him, you begin to understand that in ancient Java, leadership wasn't just a job, it was a sacred calling, a constant, delicate balancing act between the earthly and the ethereal. Having understood the sacred role of the Javanese king, let's now turn our attention to one of the most vital elements in this cosmic equation, water. You're still nestled in ancient Java, perhaps standing by a gurgling stream, feeling the cool, refreshing current ripple past your ankles. For you, in this historical daydream, water isn't just something that comes out of a tap, it is the very lifeblood of the realm, a sacred entity, deeply intertwined with the spiritual and physical well-being of society. Imagine the sheer dependence on water in this tropical agricultural society. The vast emerald rice paddies that stretched as far as the eye could see relied entirely on irrigation, on the consistent flow of rivers fed by the monsoon rains. No water, no rice, no rice, no life. It was as simple and as terrifying as that. This fundamental need elevated water from a mere resource to a divine gift, something to be revered, managed, and constantly appeased. You can almost hear the collective sigh of relief when the first drops of the monsoon touched the parched earth after a long dry season. It wasn't just rain, it was salvation. Because of this profound dependence, water became deeply embedded in Javanese cosmology and spiritual beliefs. It was seen as a purifying agent, a source of fertility, and a conduit for divine energy. Many temples, as you might recall from earlier, were strategically built near natural springs or rivers, highlighting this sacred connection. Think of it. Every time you cleansed yourself, you weren't just washing dirt away, you were participating in a ritual of purification, shedding negative energies, preparing yourself to interact with the sacred. This wasn't just a quick splash. It was a profound act of spiritual renewal. The very landscape of Java, crisscrossed with rivers and streams, dotted with springs, and constantly watered by tropical downpours, reinforced this reverence. Waterfalls cascaded down volcanic slopes, believed to be the hair of mountain deities. Rivers flowed, carrying the blessings of upstream gods to the fertile plains below. It was a watery world, and the Javanese learned to live in harmony with its rhythms, its abundance, and its occasional destructive power. Historians still argue about the precise origins of certain water purification rites. Were they purely indigenous, or did they incorporate elements from imported Hindu-Buddhist traditions? Regardless, the reverence for water was undeniable. So, when we talk about perfumed rain, it's not just about adding a pleasant scent to a downpour. It's about taking something already considered sacred water and elevating it further, infusing it with additional spiritual potency through carefully chosen fragrances. It was like giving water an extra cosmic boost, a spiritual vitamin shot, if you will. This enhanced water was then believed to carry even greater blessings, to purify not just the land, but the very essence of the people, their homes, and their spirits. You can almost feel the cool mist of a ritualistic downpour on your skin, the subtle scent of spices mingling with the earthy smell of wet soil. This wasn't just hydration, it was a full body spiritual experience. This profound connection to water, its vital role in agriculture, and its deep spiritual significance set the stage for the elaborate rituals we'll delve into. It made the king's ability to command any rain a testament to his divine power, but his ability to command perfumed rain, well, that was just showing off in the most divinely sanctioned way possible. Now that we've delved into the sacred role of water, let's pivot to what made that water perfumed: the spices. You're still in ancient Java, but perhaps now you're wandering through a bustling marketplace, the air thick with exotic scents. Forget your neat little spice rack at home. This is a sensory explosion. Imagine the pungent aroma of cloves, the sharp tang of ginger, the warm sweetness of nutmeg, and the earthy richness of cinnamon, all mingling in a heady, intoxicating cloud. This wasn't just a culinary wonderland, it was the aromatic heart of an empire's riches, and these precious commodities were absolutely central to the creation of those ritualistic perfumes. Java, and the broader Indonesian archipelago, was the legendary Spice Islands. For centuries, long before European colonialists ever dreamed of sailing east, these islands were the exclusive source of highly coveted spices like cloves, nutmeg, and mace. You can almost feel the smooth, hard texture of a dried clove in your hand, or marvel at the intricate, brain-like convolutions of a nutmeg seed. These weren't just flavour enhancers, they were currency, status symbols, and, as we'll see, powerful spiritual tools. They were worth more than gold, leading to countless wars and expeditions, though thankfully you're just observing, not fighting off rival traders. The value of these spices wasn't just in their rarity or flavour, it was also in their perceived medicinal and, crucially, their spiritual properties. Many ancient cultures believed that certain aromatic plants possessed inherent magical or divine qualities. The Javanese were no exception. Cloves, for instance, with their intense, almost fiery aroma, might have been associated with vitality or protection. Nutmeg, with its more subtle narcotic quality, perhaps with tranquility or spiritual insight. These weren't just pleasant smells, they were active agents in the ritual, believed to carry specific energies and intentions. It was like a holistic pharmacy mixed with a spiritual arsenal. So, when the king and his priests prepared the perfumed rain, they weren't just tossing in whatever smelled good. They were carefully selecting specific spices, along with fragrant flowers and resins, for their symbolic and spiritual efficacy. Imagine the meticulous grinding of dried petals, the careful pounding of roots, the slow infusion of precious oils. This wasn't a casual affair, it was a precise, almost scientific process, guided by generations of accumulated knowledge and spiritual understanding. Historians still argue about the exact recipes used for these ancient perfumes, as detailed formulas are scarce, but they generally agree on the core components being locally sourced, high-value aromatics. The use of these valuable spices in royal rituals also served another purpose. It showcased the king's wealth and control over these vital trade routes. By literally drenching his kingdom in the aroma of expensive imports, he was not only performing a spiritual act, but also making a very public, very potent display of his economic and political power. Look, he was essentially saying, "I'm so rich, I can afford to let our blessings rain down on you, scented with things more valuable than your year's wages." A bit cheeky, but effective, no doubt. You can almost taste the air now, a complex blend of earthy dampness, sweet floral notes, and the sharp, invigorating punch of exotic spices. This isn't just a history lesson, it's an immersion into a sensory world where fragrance was power, spirituality, and wealth, all rolled into one intoxicating package. And these aromas, once released into the atmosphere during the sacred rituals, were believed to carry the prayers and intentions directly to the heavens, ensuring the continued prosperity of the land and its people. A rather elaborate air freshener, wouldn't you say? But one with profound consequences. Having indulged our senses in the world of Javanese spices, let's now journey back to the very origins of these grand displays and consider the early rituals, simple beginnings. You're still in ancient Java, but we're rewinding the clock even further, to a time before elaborate stone temples dominated the landscape, before kings wore towering crowns adorned with jewels. Imagine a much more rustic setting, perhaps a clearing in the dense jungle, marked by a few rough-hewn stones or a single venerable banyan tree. The air is still humid, but the sense of raw, untamed nature is even stronger. In these earliest periods, the rituals were likely far less ornate, less structured, and certainly less public than the grand spectacles we've been envisioning. Think of them as a more intimate, direct communication with the spirits of the land. The primary focus would have been on animistic beliefs, the conviction that spirits inhabited everything: trees, rocks, rivers, and especially the powerful volcanoes. You might find a small group of villagers gathered around a particularly ancient tree, offering simple prayers, perhaps a handful of rice or a few fragrant leaves. No elaborate choreography, no perfumed rain yet, just earnest appeals to the unseen forces that govern their lives. These initial practices would have been deeply rooted in the agricultural cycle. The rhythm of planting and harvesting, the desperate hope for rain during dry spells, and the fear of floods or volcanic eruptions would have directly shaped these early ritualistic expressions. You can almost feel the collective anxiety as a long dry season stretched on, prompting desperate prayers and simple offerings to appease the rain spirits. It was a matter of survival, pure and simple. There was no room for spiritual theatrics, only direct, heartfelt pleas. As communities grew and became more complex, so too did their spiritual practices. What might have started as a simple offering at a riverbank could evolve into a more structured ceremony involving a village elder or a nascent shamanistic figure. The idea of scent, even in these early stages, would likely have played a role. Burning fragrant woods or resins, even just crushing aromatic leaves, is a primal human act found in countless cultures. It's a way to mark sacred space, to carry prayers skyward, or to simply make an offering more pleasing to the spirits. So, while the perfumed rain was a later, sophisticated development, the concept of aromatic offerings was almost certainly present from the start. This evolution from simple to complex isn't unique to Java, it's a common trajectory for spiritual traditions worldwide. As societies accumulate wealth and power, their religious expressions often become grander, more formalized, and more integrated with political authority. The kings, as we discussed, eventually took on the role of cosmic conductors, absorbing the functions of earlier spiritual leaders and formalizing what might have once been more spontaneous or localized practices. Historians still argue about the exact timeline and nature of this transition, debating whether the move from animism to the more structured Hindu-Buddhist rites was a gradual syncretism or a series of more abrupt shifts. You can almost sense the shift, the slow, imperceptible transformation. From humble beginnings, born of necessity and deep reverence for nature, these rituals began their journey towards the elaborate, multi-sensory spectacles that would eventually feature kings, temples, and of course, that spectacular, divinely scented rain. It was a long journey, spanning centuries, reflecting the slow, steady growth of Javanese civilization itself, one small offering, one whispered prayer, one fragrant leaf at a time. From those humble beginnings, the spiritual landscape of ancient Java underwent a profound transformation, influenced by powerful currents from afar. Let's dive into the fascinating story of Hindu-Buddhist fusion's influence. You're still in ancient Java, but now the air seems to hum with a different kind of energy, one that speaks of distant lands and sophisticated philosophies. Imagine the arrival of learned scholars and traders from India, bringing with them sacred texts, new deities, and complex cosmological systems. This wasn't an invasion by force, it was a gradual cultural osmosis, like a slow, deliberate steeping of tea leaves, subtly changing the flavour of the local brew. The indigenous animistic beliefs we just discussed didn't vanish overnight. Oh no. Instead, they began to interweave with the incoming traditions of Hinduism and Buddhism. Think of it as a spiritual potluck, where everyone brought their favourite dish, and somehow it all blended into a surprisingly delicious and unique meal. This syncretic blend is a defining characteristic of ancient Javanese civilization, creating a spiritual tapestry unlike almost anywhere else in the world. You'd find temples with Hindu deities, alongside Buddhist stupas, and often both traditions were revered by the same royal court, sometimes even by the same individual. It was the ultimate, why not both, approach to religion. From Hinduism, the Javanese embraced the concept of a divine kingship, where the ruler was seen as an incarnation or a direct representative of a god, often Vishnu or Shiva. This powerfully reinforced the idea of the king as a cosmic conductor, a notion we touched upon earlier. It elevated his status from a mere tribal chief to a living deity, giving immense spiritual authority to his rule. Imagine the weight of that. You're not just managing the rice paddies, you're literally channeling Shiva. That's a pretty intense job description. Buddhism, particularly its Mahayana form, introduced concepts of enlightened beings, bodhisattvas, karma, and the pursuit of spiritual merit. Its emphasis on grand monuments and elaborate rituals also found fertile ground in Java, culminating in architectural marvels like Borobudur and Prambanan, which you've probably seen pictures of, even if you didn't know their Javanese connection. These weren't just buildings, they were cosmic diagrams, spiritual journeys etched in stone. So, how did this fusion impact our perfumed rain rituals? Immensely. The incoming Hindu and Buddhist traditions brought with them a sophisticated understanding of ritual purity, the power of sacred offerings, and the importance of precise ceremonial performance. They introduced new pantheons of deities to invoke, new mantras to chant, and new symbolic meanings to infuse into every action. The simple offerings of earlier times evolved into intricate, multi-day ceremonies involving large numbers of priests, musicians, and dancers. It was a serious upgrade, transforming a basic rain dance into a full-blown spiritual opera. The use of specific aromatic substances was also greatly enhanced by these new influences. Both Hinduism and Buddhism have long traditions of using incense, fragrant oils, and flowers in their worship. These practices seamlessly integrated with Java's existing love affair with spices and aromatic plants. The perfume of the rain likely became more complex, incorporating ingredients and methods perhaps introduced or refined by Indian spiritual traditions, combined with indigenous Javanese knowledge of local flora. Historians still argue whether certain specific ritualistic gestures or ingredients in the perfumed rain ceremony were primarily Hindu, Buddhist, or uniquely Javanese in origin, highlighting the intricate layers of this fusion. You can almost feel the intellectual and spiritual ferment in the air, a blend of ancient Javanese earthiness with the lofty philosophies of the subcontinent. This wasn't just a cultural exchange, it was a profound transformation that enriched the spiritual life of the island and provided the theoretical framework for the even grander and more complex rituals, like our scented downpours, that would define the golden age of Javanese kingdoms. It turns out, sometimes mixing things up can lead to some truly beautiful and wonderfully fragrant results. We've now set the historical and spiritual stage, journeying through Java's volcanic landscape, the king's cosmic role, the sacredness of water, the wealth of spices, and the profound impact of Hindu-Buddhist fusion. Now, let's get down to the truly aromatic heart of the matter, the ritualistic perfumes. You're practically in the royal compound now, perhaps catching a glimpse into the inner sanctum where these sacred scents are prepared. Imagine the hushed reverence, the meticulous care taken with every ingredient. This wasn't just about mixing nice smells, it was an act of profound spiritual alchemy intended to imbue the very rain with divine essence. The creation of these perfumes was a closely guarded secret, likely known only to a select few high-ranking priests and perhaps the royal family themselves. It wasn't something you'd find a recipe for in a cookbook, unless it was a very, very old and very, very sacred one. The ingredients, as we touched on earlier, would have been a blend of Java's own abundant aromatic flora and precious, often imported spices. Think about it. The deep, resinous scent of frankincense and myrrh, perhaps imported via trade routes, mingling with the sharp, invigorating punch of local cloves and the sweet, creamy notes of sandalwood, which was also highly prized. Picture the process. Dried fragrant woods, like sandalwood or aloes wood, being carefully shaved or ground into fine powders. Petals from blossoms like jasmine, frangipani, or the intensely fragrant champaka flower, meticulously collected at dawn when their scent was strongest, then gently dried or perhaps infused into oils. Spices like nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon bark might be crushed in stone mortars, releasing their potent aromas. Resins, perhaps collected from local trees, would add a deep, almost smoky, undertone. All of these would be combined in precise proportions, guided by ancient knowledge passed down through generations. It's enough to make your modern essential oil diffuser look rather pedestrian, isn't it? The methods of creating these ritualistic perfumes were likely diverse. Some ingredients might have been macerated in water for days or weeks, allowing their essences to infuse the liquid. Others might have been distilled, using ancient rudimentary forms of distillation apparatus to capture highly concentrated aromatic oils. And certainly, many would have been used as incense, burned to release their fragrant smoke, which was believed to carry prayers skyward and purify the ritual space. The idea was to create a multi-sensory experience, a pervasive blanket of scent that elevated the atmosphere and prepared the human and divine participants for communion. When it came to the perfumed rain itself, the method of dispersal is where historians still argue. Some theories suggest the concentrated liquid perfumes were added to large vats of water, which were then somehow sprayed or dispersed during the ritual. Others posit that vast quantities of aromatic woods and resins were burned, and the smoke, laden with fragrance, mingled with the natural rainfall, or perhaps even induced the rain through some atmospheric phenomenon, the ancient Javanese, understood in a spiritual context. A truly ambitious theory suggests a system of elevated water features where fragrant water was allowed to cascade down. Regardless of the precise mechanics, the intent was clear: to create a rain that was not merely wet, but sacred, cleansing, and powerfully aromatic. Imagine the sensory experience of this event. The humid air, already heavy with the scent of damp earth and jungle foliage, suddenly infused with the exquisite, complex aromas of these ritualistic perfumes. The deep, grounding notes of wood and resin, the bright, uplifting scent of blossoms, the sharp, almost medicinal tang of spices. It would have been an olfactory symphony, overwhelming the senses, transporting participants to a different plane of consciousness. This wasn't just a pleasant smell, it was an active participant in the ritual, a conduit for divine blessings, literally showering the kingdom in good fortune. It makes you wonder if they ever had trouble with bees during these events. Just a thought. With the aromatic ingredients prepared and the anticipation building, let's now immerse ourselves in the grand prelude to the perfumed rain. The royal procession's grandeur. You're no longer peering into a quiet preparation room. You're now standing among the throngs of people lining the ancient pathways of the kingdom, craning your neck to catch a glimpse of the spectacle. Imagine the air crackling with excitement, a palpable energy vibrating through the crowd. This wasn't just a parade. It was a living, moving tableau of power, spirituality, and divine connection, all setting the stage for the ultimate meteorological magic trick. The procession would have been an absolutely breathtaking sight, a carefully choreographed display of the King's majesty and his sacred connection to the cosmos. You'd hear the distant, rhythmic beat of gongs and drums long before you saw anything, a deep, resonant thrumming that vibrated through the ground beneath your feet, building in intensity. Then the flutes would join in, their melodic, almost haunting tones weaving through the percussive rhythm. This wasn't just background music, it was the sacred soundtrack to a moving temple, preparing the collective consciousness for the divine encounter. First, you might see rows upon rows of royal guards, their uniforms vibrant with colour, their weapons gleaming in the tropical sun. Perhaps they carried banners emblazoned with royal emblems or symbols of the gods. Then would come the various court officials, each dressed in silks and brocades, their status evident in the richness of their attire and the intricate patterns of their batik fabrics. You can almost feel the collective intake of breath as the main contingent draws near. But the true spectacle would begin with the sacred items and the priestly retinues. Priests, cloaked in white or saffron robes, their faces serene with spiritual focus, would carry sacred offerings, intricately carved vessels, trays laden with flowers, perhaps even sacred relics or effigies of deities. Imagine the slow, deliberate pace, each step imbued with spiritual significance, every movement a part of the ritual itself. The air around them would be thick with the scent of burning incense, already wafting from censers carried by attendants, a fragrant cloud preceding the main event. This was the first hint of the aromatic blessings to come. And then, the king. You might catch your breath as he appears, carried aloft on an ornate palanquin, perhaps sheltered by a ceremonial umbrella, a symbol of royal protection and divine authority. He wouldn't just be dressed in finery, he would be adorned with jewels, gold, and perhaps even fragrant garlands, embodying the very essence of wealth, power, and spiritual purity. His gaze would be fixed, distant, perhaps already communing with the heavens. To the common people, this wasn't just a man, it was a living embodiment of the divine, a direct conduit to the gods. You definitely want to be on his good side, especially if you needed rain for your crops. The entire procession would move slowly, deliberately, towards the sacred ritual Saitia temple, a mountain peak, or a specially consecrated open ground. The route would likely be lined with devotees, offering flowers, burning incense, and bowing in reverence. It was a unifying event, drawing the entire kingdom into a shared spiritual experience, reinforcing the king's legitimacy and the cosmic order he represented. Historians still argue whether the primary purpose of such grand processions was spiritual reverence or a sophisticated display of political power to awe and control the populace. It was almost certainly both, a masterful blend of sacred theatre and statecraft. You can almost feel the press of the crowd, the hushed murmurs, the rising excitement, all culminating in this magnificent display of royal power and divine connection. Every element, from the music to the attire to the careful placement of each participant, was designed to amplify the anticipation, to prepare the land and its people for the momentous act of commanding the perfumed rain. It was a spectacle that solidified belief, bound the community, and reminded everyone exactly who was in charge both on earth and in the heavens. What a way to start your day, eh? Far more exciting than your morning commute. The grand royal procession, having snaked its way through the kingdom, now approaches its ultimate destination, the Temple Mountains. You're still part of the reverent crowd. Or perhaps, in this particular dream, you've been granted access to the sacred precincts themselves, feeling the cool, worn stone beneath your bare feet. These weren't just buildings in the modern sense. They were elaborate, multi-tiered structures designed to replicate the cosmic order, to be earthly reflections of the divine abode. Imagine stepping into a spiritual diagram carved in stone, each level ascending closer to the heavens. In ancient Java, the construction of these colossal temple complexes, often built on elevated ground or artificial mounds to further emphasize their connection to mountain peaks, was an act of profound devotion and an immense display of royal power. Temples like Borobudur and Prambanan, though built in slightly different periods and for different religious traditions, Buddhist and Hindu, respectively, share this common architectural philosophy. They are sacred centers, meticulously designed to serve as focal points for rituals and as representations of the cosmos itself. You can almost feel the spiritual weight emanating from the ancient stones, absorbing centuries of prayers and devotion. These temple mountains were conceived as microcosms of the universe, with their various levels representing different planes of existence, from the earthly realm of desire to the formless realms of enlightenment. The king, by performing rituals within these structures, was essentially navigating these cosmic levels, demonstrating his mastery over both the mundane and the divine. It was like performing a religious dance on a giant sacred board game, with the highest levels being the goal. The design of these temples, with their intricate carvings, stupas, and shrines, would have provided a rich backdrop for the perfumed rain ceremonies. Imagine the king and his retinue ascending the tiered terraces, each step bringing them closer to the central, most sacred point. The air would be filled with the sounds of chanting echoing off the stone, the soft tinkling of bells, and the pervasive aroma of incense. Every architectural detail, every sculpted figure would have played a part in the ritual, guiding the participants' focus and deepening their spiritual experience. Historians still argue about the precise esoteric meanings of every frieze and statue within these temple complexes. Were they purely didactic, or did they also serve as meditative aids during complex rituals? The answer likely lies in the eye of the beholder, or perhaps the meditating monk. The choice of these temple mountains as ritual sites was no accident. Mountains, in many ancient cultures, are seen as sacred places, points of communion between earth and sky. They are where the raw power of the earth meets the expansive vault of the heavens. In Java, with its numerous volcanic peaks, this symbolism was particularly potent. The temples, by mimicking these natural formations, amplified this connection, making them ideal places to invoke the gods and to perform rituals that sought to influence cosmic phenomena like rain. It was like building a giant, ornate lightning rod for divine blessings. You can almost feel the reverence of the ancient Javanese as they approached these sacred centres. These weren't just tourist attractions, they were living temples, throbbing with spiritual energy, where the veil between worlds felt thinner. The perfumed rain ritual, culminating at such a site, would have been an experience of overwhelming sensory and spiritual immersion. The sight of the king, ascending towards the heavens, enveloped by the sacred architecture and the rising aroma of the perfumes, would have reinforced his status as the indispensable link between the human world and the divine, ensuring the continued prosperity of the fertile land below. It's enough to make you feel rather small, isn't it, standing there amidst such ancient grandeur. As the procession arrives at the Temple Mountain and the king takes his place at the sacred heart of the complex, the atmosphere deepens, shifting from visual spectacle to a profound auditory and spiritual experience. We now enter the realm of chanting and incantations power. You're no longer just observing. You can feel the resonant vibrations in the air, the very stones of the temple seeming to hum with the collective sound. This wasn't just singing, it was a sophisticated art form, believed to be a direct line to the divine, preparing the heavens to receive the king's potent aromatic offerings. Imagine the sounds now, not the gentle hum of your fan, but the deep, guttural drone of male voices, rising and falling in complex patterns. These would be the highly trained priests, their voices honed through years of practice, reciting ancient mantras and sacred verses from Hindu and Buddhist scriptures, perhaps even older indigenous chants. These weren't just words, they were believed to be sonic manifestations of divine power, precise formulations of sound designed to invoke specific deities, purify the space, and align human consciousness with cosmic forces. It's like a spiritual tuning fork, setting the vibrations just right for divine intervention. The chants would vary in tempo and intensity, sometimes a slow, meditative drone, drawing everyone deeper into a trance-like state. At other times, they might crescendo into a powerful, rapid outpouring of sound, building energy, seemingly pulling the spiritual forces closer. You can almost feel the air growing heavy, charged with this acoustic energy. Alongside the voices, there would be the subtle ring of bells, the rhythmic clash of small cymbals, or the deep, resonant boom of a large gong, each instrument contributing to the overall sonic tapestry. These were not mere musical embellishments. They were part of the sacred language, each tone believed to have specific spiritual properties. The act of recitation itself was a form of meditation and invocation. The priests, through their disciplined practice, aimed to achieve a state of heightened spiritual awareness, becoming channels for the divine. Their unwavering focus, combined with the collective attention of the king and the gathered worshippers, would create a powerful energetic field, intended to pave the way for the ritual's success. It's a lot more demanding than humming along to your favorite sleep track, isn't it? The power attributed to these sacred sounds was immense. It was believed that the correct pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm of a mantra could literally reshape reality, influence natural phenomena, and even grant spiritual liberation. For the perfumed rain ritual, the chants would be specifically chosen to invoke deities associated with water, fertility, and atmospheric phenomena, encouraging them to unleash their blessings upon the land. They were essentially giving the divine a very polite yet firm instruction. Historians still argue whether the meaning of the words was as important as the sound itself in terms of perceived spiritual efficacy, with some scholars emphasizing the performative aspect of ritual sound. You can close your eyes and feel the immersive power of these ancient sounds washing over you. The air thick with incense, the rhythmic chants echoing off the stone, the collective intent focused on a single purpose, to call forth the life-giving, perfumed rain. It was an experience designed to transcend the ordinary, to elevate the human spirit, and to bridge the gap between the earthly realm and the divine. And in that moment, as the chanting reached its peak, you might even find yourself believing that the very clouds above were beginning to listen. As the chanting resonates through the temple mountain, creating an almost tangible spiritual field, the next crucial element of the ritual takes center stage: the offerings. You're still deeply immersed in the ancient Javanese ceremony, perhaps now observing the careful placement of beautifully arranged items on ornate altars. These weren't mere gifts, they were meticulously prepared expressions of devotion designed to appease the gods and ensure their benevolent intervention in bringing the perfumed rain. Imagine a cosmic bargaining table where the stakes were nothing less than the prosperity of an entire kingdom. The offerings in these royal rituals were incredibly diverse, reflecting the wealth of the kingdom and the sophistication of the religious beliefs. You'd see baskets intricately woven from palm leaves, brimming with plump, perfectly ripe fruits, mangoes, papayas, and rambutan, their colours vibrant against the verdant backdrop. Bowls of steaming, fragrant rice, often dyed yellow with turmeric, symbolising prosperity and life itself, would be carefully placed. Imagine the subtle sweetness of sticky rice mingling with the stronger scents of the burning incense. But it wasn't just about food, though sustenance was paramount for an agricultural society. There would also be more precious offerings, exquisitely crafted gold and silver artifacts, perhaps miniature effigies of deities, or symbols of royal power. Imagine the glint of sunlight catching the polished metal, a silent testament to the kingdom's affluence. Rare textiles, woven with intricate patterns, would be draped over altars or presented to the priests. And of course, there would be an abundance of fresh flowers, arranged in elaborate patterns, their ephemeral beauty a poignant reminder of life's delicate balance. Think of piles of jasmine, champaka, and frangipani blossoms, their fragrance adding another layer to the already heady atmosphere. The act of offering wasn't passive. Each item was presented with profound reverence, often accompanied by specific prayers or gestures. The offerings were believed to create a reciprocal relationship with the divine. Humans offered their most valued possessions, their purest intentions, and their deepest devotion, and in return, the gods bestowed their blessings. It was a cosmic exchange program with very high stakes. You wouldn't want to bring stale cookies to this party. Beyond the material offerings, there was also the offering of spiritual merit and intention. The collective focus of the king, the priests, and the assembled people was itself a powerful offering, a concentrated energy directed towards the success of the ritual. The chants, as we discussed, were part of this, but also the internal state of devotion, the sincere desire for the well-being of the land. It was a full-body, full spirit commitment. While the exact nature of some offerings remains debated amongst historians, it is clear that they served multiple purposes. They appeased the deities, they purified the ritual space, and they also publicly demonstrated the king's piety and his kingdom's prosperity, further legitimizing his rule. Imagine a less than prosperous king trying to pull off this level of elaborate offering. It would be a rather difficult sell to the gods, and probably to his subjects as well. You can almost feel the gentle breeze carrying the mixed aromas of fruit, flowers, and the rich smoke from the burning offerings, mingling with the carefully prepared ritualistic perfumes. This symphony of scents and sights, combined with the resonant chanting, created an immersive experience designed to bridge the gap between the mundane and the divine. And as each offering was laid before the unseen powers, the anticipation for the coming perfumed rain would intensify, a collective prayer hanging in the humid air, waiting for the heavens to respond. It makes your potluck dish seem rather low effort by comparison, doesn't it? With the stage set, the chants echoing, and the offerings meticulously laid out, the next critical phase of the perfumed rain ritual concerns its precise timing. This wasn't a spontaneous decision, it was about auspicious timing, cosmic alignments. You're now sensing the deeper, almost mathematical layer beneath the spiritual grandeur, where the movements of celestial bodies dictated the earthly calendar of blessings. Imagine the royal astrologers, their eyes scanning the night sky, their hands tracing intricate patterns on ancient palm leaf manuscripts, seeking the perfect moment. For the ancient Javanese, just as with many other sophisticated civilizations, the cosmos was a living clock, and the movements of the stars, planets, and moon were not random occurrences, but divine indicators. Rituals, especially ones as significant as invoking perfumed rain, could not simply happen on any old Tuesday. Oh no. They had to be performed at the most propitious moment, when the celestial energies were aligned in a way that maximized the chances of success and divine favor. It was like launching a very important rocket, where every second counted, except the payload was prosperity and the engine was spiritual power. This involved intricate astrological and calendrical calculations. The Javanese developed complex calendars, often integrating indigenous cycles with elements from Hindu and Buddhist astronomical knowledge. Priests and court astrologers, highly educated individuals, would spend countless hours observing the heavens, interpreting planetary positions, lunar phases, and the movements of constellations. They would consult ancient texts and elaborate charts, seeking specific conjunctions or auspicious nakshatras, lunar mansions, that were believed to be particularly favorable for rain, fertility, or purification. You can almost see them, hunched over their instruments, meticulously charting the cosmic dance. The timing could be influenced by a variety of factors. The annual monsoon cycle, certainly, as the ritual aimed to ensure good rain, but also specific dates within the Javanese calendar that were considered sacred or powerful. A new moon, a full moon, a particular alignment of visible planets, each held a unique energetic signature. The goal was to tap into these pre-existing cosmic currents, not just to perform a ritual, but to perform it when the universe itself was most receptive to the king's pleas. It was a bit like trying to catch a wave. You don't just jump in anywhere, you wait for the perfect swell. This emphasis on precise timing underscores the highly ritualized nature of ancient Javanese society and its deep connection to the natural world and the cosmos. Every significant event, from a royal marriage to a military campaign, would have its timing meticulously planned according to astrological dictates. The perfumed rain ritual, being so fundamental to the kingdom's well-being, would have commanded the utmost precision in its scheduling. Historians still argue about the extent to which these astrological calculations were truly believed to influence the gods, versus serving as a sophisticated psychological tool to reassure the populace and bolster the king's image as a cruder master of cosmic forces. Perhaps, like a good magician, the king understood the power of impeccable timing. You can almost feel the collective holding of breath as the predetermined, auspicious moment approached. The tension would build, a silent countdown, as the king and his priests performed the final preparations, knowing that the very alignment of the stars was now on their side, or at least that they had done everything humanly possible to ensure it. It was a powerful reminder that in ancient Java, time wasn't just a linear progression, it was cyclical, sacred, and imbued with cosmic significance, and the king was the ultimate timekeeper for the spiritual destiny of his people. No wonder they called him a cosmic conductor, right? He was basically conducting the universe. The moment has arrived. After meticulous preparation, solemn chanting, precise offerings, and the calculations of auspicious cosmic timing, all eyes turned skyward for the ritual's culmination, rainfall. You're there, standing amidst the expectant crowd, perhaps feeling the humid air grow heavier, sensing a subtle shift in the atmosphere. This is the ultimate test, the grand finale of the king's cosmic performance, the moment when divine blessing, or absence thereof, would be made manifest. Imagine the collective anticipation, the silent prayers, the sheer hope hanging in the air. As the king reaches the apex of the ritual, perhaps performing a final symbolic gesture or uttering a particularly potent mantra, the focus shifts entirely to the sky. The chants might reach a crescendo, then fade to a hushed murmur, allowing the sounds of nature to take over. You can almost feel the gentle breeze pick up, hear the rustling of palm fronds, perhaps see the distant clouds begin to gather. This wasn't just about precipitation. It was about the kind of precipitation, the tangible proof of the king's spiritual efficacy and the god's benevolence. Then, the first drops. Imagine them, cool and distinct against your skin, carrying not just the scent of ozone and damp earth, but also the delicate, ethereal aroma of the ritualistic perfumes. This isn't just a shower, it's a blessing, a purification, a visible manifestation of divine favour. The scent might be subtle at first, mingling with the natural smells of the jungle, then growing stronger as the rain intensifies. This perfumed rain would be the tangible proof that the king's efforts had been successful, that the gods had heard the prayers and accepted the offerings. The sensation of the scented rain would be overwhelming. You'd feel it on your face, taste it faintly on your lips, and inhale its complex fragrance with every breath. It would be a full-body immersion in divine blessing. People might raise their faces to the sky, their arms outstretched, welcoming the sacred deluge. Children might laugh and dance, knowing that this rain meant good crops, healthy livestock, and continued prosperity. It was more than just relief from drought. It was a cosmic affirmation. Of course, not every ritual would necessarily result in an immediate downpour. Ancient Javanese beliefs were nuanced. If the rain didn't come, it might be interpreted in various ways. Perhaps the king's intentions weren't pure enough, perhaps the offerings were insufficient, or perhaps the gods had a different plan. It wasn't always seen as a failure of the ritual itself, but as a sign requiring further appeasement or interpretation. After all, blaming the heavens is always easier than blaming the guy in charge, right? Historians still debate the frequency of these successful perfumed rain events. Were they truly miraculous occurrences, or were they carefully timed to coincide with the natural onset of the monsoon? Leveraging natural phenomena for spiritual and political gain? A bit of both seems like a safe bet. But when it did come, when that perfumed rain descended, it would be a moment of profound collective awe and joyous celebration. It would reinforce the king's legitimacy, strengthen the communal bond, and reaffirm the ancient Javanese worldview, where the divine and the mundane were inextricably linked. You can almost hear the sighs of relief, the whispers of gratitude, as the scented water cleansed the land and promised another season of abundance. It was a watery, fragrant miracle, and you were there to witness it. Quite the experience, wouldn't you say? Much more memorable than that leaky faucet in your bathroom. The sacred rain, carrying its unique fragrance, has touched the earth. Now, let's consider the scene from the perspective of the broader community. Public participation and awe. You are no longer merely an observer. You are part of the vast crowd that has gathered, perhaps from distant villages, to witness this monumental event. Imagine the sheer scale of the gathering, the murmuring anticipation, and then the collective gasp, followed by exclamations of wonder as the perfume drops begin to fall. This wasn't a private, exclusive ceremony. It was a grand, unifying spectacle designed to be witnessed by all, solidifying their faith in the king and the cosmic order. For the common people, this ritual was far more than just a performance. It was a deeply spiritual and practical lifeline. Their very survival depended on the success of the harvest, which in turn depended on the timely and abundant rainfall. So, the king's ability to seemingly command the heavens to bring forth not just water, but blessed, perfumed water, would have instilled immense faith and gratitude. You can almost feel the relief washing over the crowd, a palpable sense of tension dissipating as the scented rain cleansed the air and promised renewal. Their participation wasn't just passive observation. While the king and the high priests performed the most esoteric rites, the common people would engage in their own forms of devotion. They might offer silent prayers, bow in reverence, or join in communal chants. Many would bring small offerings of their own, a handful of rice, a few plucked flowers, to present at the periphery of the ritual space, connecting their individual hopes and dreams to the grand royal ceremony. Imagine the quiet sincerity of a farmer holding a single, perfect blossom, offering it to the unseen forces alongside the king's more elaborate tributes. The sight of their king, elevated both physically on his dais and spiritually by his actions, would have been awe-inspiring. He wasn't just a distant figure sending out decrees. He was a visible, tangible link to the divine, a protector who could literally bring blessings from the sky. This public display would significantly bolster his legitimacy and authority. If the king could make it rain perfume, what else could he do? It fostered a deep sense of loyalty and reinforced the social hierarchy, with the king at the undisputed apex, sanctioned by the heavens themselves. It probably also helped keep the peace, as few people would openly defy someone who seemingly had direct access to the rain gods. Furthermore, the perfumed rain was believed to have tangible benefits for everyone present and for the land itself. It wasn't just symbolically cleansing, it was thought to physically purify, to bring fertility to the soil, and perhaps even to offer protection against disease. People might collect the sacred water in vessels, taking it back to their homes and fields as a powerful blessing. You can imagine the elderly carefully dabbing their foreheads, or mothers gently sprinkling it on their children, believing in its purifying and protective power. Historians still argue about the precise level of belief versus political expediency in these grand public rituals. While the spiritual conviction of the participants was undoubtedly sincere, the state clearly understood the immense power of such spectacles to unify the populace, manage expectations, and reinforce royal authority. It was a masterful act of public relations, centuries before the concept was even invented. And as you stand there, feeling the perfumed drops on your skin, you realize that for a brief, wondrous moment, the mundane world and the divine realm have truly converged, orchestrated by the king for the benefit of all. It's certainly more engaging than watching paint dry or, some of the more pedestrian activities of modern governance. The final drops of the perfumed rain have fallen, leaving the air fresh and vibrant with exotic scents. But the ritual isn't truly over. In fact, the success of the rain often ushered in a new phase of communal life, post-rain festivities and harvest. You're still in ancient Java, but the mood has shifted from solemn reverence to jubilant celebration. Imagine the collective exhalation of relief, the smiles breaking out across faces, the joyous chatter replacing hushed whispers. This wasn't just a moment of spiritual triumph. It was a prelude to the most vital time of the year, directly linked to agricultural prosperity. As the perfumed rain softened the earth, the immediate aftermath would often involve communal gatherings and expressions of gratitude. People wouldn't just disperse, they'd linger, sharing food and drink that had been brought for the occasion. You might see families picnicking under newly cleansed trees, sharing simple meals of rice, fruit, and perhaps dried fish, their hearts light with the promise of a bountiful future. The atmosphere would be one of shared joy and solidarity, a powerful reinforcement of community bonds. It was like the ultimate block party, except instead of a DJ, you had a king who could literally make it rain perfume. The true significance of the successful ritual, however, lay in its direct connection to the agricultural cycle. For a society dependent on rice cultivation, water was everything. The perfumed rain, arriving at the auspicious moment, meant the irrigation systems would be replenished, the soil would be primed, and the rice seedlings, whether already planted or soon to be, would have the vital moisture they needed to flourish. You can almost see the farmers, their faces now beaming, looking out at their fields with renewed hope, ready to begin the arduous but rewarding work of planting or tending the growing crops. This led directly into the harvest season, the culmination of all the year's efforts. If the perfumed rain ritual was successful, the harvest was expected to be abundant. Imagine the vibrant green of the young rice shoots transforming into fields of golden grain, heavy with promise. The subsequent harvest festivals would be even more joyous, replete with singing, dancing, and elaborate feasts, all serving as expressions of gratitude to the gods and to the king who had facilitated these divine blessings. It was a cyclical reinforcement of belief. The ritual brought the rain brought the harvest, and the harvest reinforced the power of the ritual and the king. Historians still argue about the precise correlation perceived by the ancient Javanese between a specific ritual and the quality of the harvest. Was it seen as an absolute guarantee, or more as a way to maximize good fortune? It was likely a nuanced understanding, acknowledging both divine will and human effort. The success of these rituals, and the subsequent bounty, also served to further legitimize the king's rule. A king who could consistently ensure prosperous harvests through his cosmic connections was a king worth following, a divine protector. His popularity and authority would soar, reinforcing the stability of the kingdom. It was a clear demonstration that his spiritual role had tangible, beneficial outcomes for every single person. No amount of propaganda could beat actual perfumed rain, followed by a full belly. You can almost hear the celebratory music, the laughter, the sounds of communal feasting, echoing through the revitalized landscape. The fragrance of the ritualistic perfumes might still linger faintly in the air, a sweet reminder of the sacred encounter that had brought such good fortune. This wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving, about living in harmonious connection with the land, the spirits, and the powerful cosmic conductor who sat on the throne. And for a moment, as you feel the warmth of the sun on your skin and hear the sounds of contentment, you understand the profound joy and relief that followed a perfectly scented, perfectly timed downpour. With the joyous celebrations of a successful perfumed rain ritual fading into contentment, it's important to understand that the king's work was far from done. These grand, public ceremonies were significant, yes, but they were part of a larger, ongoing commitment, maintaining cosmic harmony daily. You're now gaining insight into the relentless, behind-the-scenes efforts of the Javanese king, who, as we've established, wasn't just a figurehead, but a constant, active participant in the delicate balance of the universe. Imagine the pressure of knowing that your every action, your every thought, could tip the scales of cosmic order. For the ancient Javanese, the universe was not a static entity, but a dynamic, interconnected web of forces. Cosmic harmony wasn't a state that, once achieved, simply maintained itself. It required constant vigilance, continuous effort, and a multitude of rituals, both grand and subtle, performed throughout the year, indeed, throughout the king's entire reign. The perfumed rain ritual, while climactic, was just one crucial piece in this intricate jigsaw puzzle of cosmic maintenance. The king's daily life would have been a structured progression of duties, many of them imbued with spiritual significance. This included not just grand public ceremonies, but also private meditations, specific prayers, and personal acts of piety. He might engage in daily offerings at his private shrine, consult with astrologers and priests on minor decisions, or adhere to strict dietary and behavioral codes. Every aspect of his existence was seen as contributing to the overall spiritual well-being of the kingdom. It was a 24/7 job, with no holidays or sick days, and the entire kingdom as his spiritual performance review board. Even his physical health and moral rectitude were considered vital for cosmic harmony. A king who was ill or who exhibited immoral behavior was believed to disrupt the balance, potentially leading to misfortune for the land and its people. This put immense pressure on the king to embody ideal virtues, to maintain spiritual purity, and to lead a life exemplary of cosmic order. You can imagine the stress of trying to be perfectly virtuous all the time, especially with volcanic rumblings constantly reminding you of the consequences. Furthermore, the king was responsible for ensuring the proper functioning of the irrigation systems, the fair administration of justice, and the maintenance of peaceful relations with neighbouring kingdoms. While these might seem like purely secular duties to us, for the ancient Javanese, they were inextricably linked to the spiritual health of the realm. A well-ordered society, with justice and prosperity, was itself a reflection of cosmic harmony, and the king was its chief architect. Historians still argue about the precise division of labour between the king's spiritual and administrative roles. Were they truly indivisible, or did practicality sometimes outweigh spiritual adherence? It's safe to say they were deeply intertwined. Think of it as a constant, subtle dance with the divine. The king was always attuned to the whispers of the spirits, the signs in nature, and the needs of his people, constantly adjusting his actions to ensure the delicate balance was maintained. The perfumed rain rituals were the loud, public declarations of his success in this ongoing endeavour, grand manifestations of a continuous, behind-the-scenes effort to keep the cosmic machine purring along smoothly. It's a lot more demanding than your typical leadership role, where the biggest worry is usually just forgetting someone's birthday. Here, forgetting a deity's special day could literally cause a famine. Talk about job security. Beyond the daily grind of maintaining cosmic harmony, the perfumed rain rituals, and indeed the entire concept of the king's cosmic role, played a profound part in a matter of utmost dynastic importance, succession rituals and legitimacy. You're now peering into the inner workings of the royal court, where power was not just inherited, but actively, ritually, and divinely sanctioned. Imagine the intense political maneuvering, the whispered ambitions, all tempered by the overarching need for spiritual approval. In ancient Javanese kingdoms, the transfer of power from one king to the next was never a simple handover. It was a moment of profound spiritual vulnerability and immense political tension. A new ruler, even if a direct heir, needed to demonstrate not only his fitness to govern, but crucially his divine mandate. He needed to prove that he, too, possessed the unique connection to the gods and the cosmic forces that legitimized his predecessor's rule. This wasn't just about winning an election, it was about getting the heavens to cast their vote. The perfumed rain rituals and similar grand ceremonies would have been absolutely instrumental in this process of legitimization. A newly ascended king might commission such a ritual early in his reign, a very public and potent demonstration of his ability to maintain cosmic harmony and bring blessings to the land. If he could successfully invoke the perfumed rain, it served as powerful evidence that the gods had indeed approved of his ascension, bestowing their favour upon him and, by extension, upon his lineage. Imagine the immense propaganda value of making it literally rain blessings on your first day in office. Conversely, a king who struggled to elicit such divine responses might face challenges to his legitimacy. Droughts or other natural calamities during his reign could be interpreted as signs of divine displeasure, weakening his position and potentially fueling rebellions or rival claims to the throne. This created a powerful incentive for rulers to ensure these rituals were performed flawlessly and, ideally, successfully. It was the ultimate show, don't tell approach to proving you were meant to rule. These rituals also helped to secure the lineage of the dynasty. By repeatedly performing these successful ceremonies, each king reinforced the idea that his entire family was divinely chosen to rule. The power and favour of the gods were seen as flowing through the royal bloodline, making succession appear as a natural, cosmically ordained process rather than a mere human political arrangement. This added a layer of spiritual security to what could often be a very turbulent political landscape. Historians still argue about the extent to which a king's perceived failure to bring rain could directly lead to his overthrow, with some suggesting that such events were often leveraged by existing political rivals. You can almost feel the weight of expectation on a new king's shoulders as he prepared for his first major perfumed rain ceremony. His entire reign, perhaps even the fate of his dynasty, could hinge on its success. It was a moment of both profound spiritual significance and intense political pressure, demonstrating that in ancient Java the crown was worn not just by a man, but by a conduit to the divine, a necessary link in the chain of cosmic order. It makes modern political campaigns, with all their debates and handshaking, seem rather quaint and certainly less fragrant. At least they don't have to worry about a divine thumbs down in the form of a failed monsoon. We've journeyed through the intricate layers of the perfumed rain rituals, from their meticulous preparation to their dramatic culmination and profound political implications. Now, let's unpack the deeper meaning behind it all, the perfumed rain's symbolism. You're no longer just an observer of the ritual. You're delving into the collective consciousness of ancient Java, trying to understand what this scented phenomenon truly meant to the people and their rulers. Imagine unraveling a complex tapestry, thread by fragrant thread, to reveal its hidden patterns. At its most fundamental level, the perfumed rain was a tangible representation of divine favour. When the scented drops fell, it was a clear sign that the gods had heard the king's prayers, accepted his offerings, and smiled upon the kingdom. This wasn't some abstract concept. It was a sensory experience that left no doubt in the minds of the people. The very air was imbued with blessings, a physical manifestation of cosmic approval. It was like receiving a heavenly endorsement, signed, sealed, and delivered with a pleasant aroma. Secondly, the rain carried powerful symbolism of purification. Water, as we've noted, was revered for its cleansing properties, but perfumed water elevated this. The addition of sacred fragrances, often associated with spiritual purity and auspiciousness in Hindu-Buddhist traditions, meant that the rain was not just washing away physical dirt, but spiritual impurities. It was believed to cleanse the land, purify the people's bodies and minds, and wash away any negative energies or ill omens that might have accumulated. Imagine feeling a fresh start, not just for the land, but for your very soul, with every sweet-smelling drop. It's a far cry from a regular spring cleaning, isn't it? Thirdly, and perhaps most crucially for an agrarian society, the perfumed rain was an ultimate symbol of renewal and fertility. Rain brought life to the crops, ensured a bountiful harvest, and nourished the land, making it fertile. The added perfume intensified this symbolism, implying an even richer, more abundant life force being poured down from the heavens. It promised not just sustenance, but prosperity, growth, and the continuation of life itself. It was the ultimate metaphor for abundance, literally raining down good fortune. Beyond these core meanings, the perfumed rain also symbolized the king's unique status as a cosmic intermediary. His ability to facilitate such a profound divine blessing reinforced his role as the necessary link between the human world and the divine. It showcased his spiritual power, his piety, and his essential function in maintaining the cosmic order that ensured the well-being of his kingdom. He wasn't just a manager, he was the spiritual CEO, ensuring the blessings flowed from the top down. Furthermore, the very act of a widespread pleasant scent covering the land could have had a psychological impact, fostering a sense of collective well-being and unity. Shared sensory experiences, especially those as profound as a unique aroma linked to divine favour, can deeply etch themselves into the collective memory and reinforce cultural identity. It was a shared experience of profound wonder. Historians still argue about the subtle nuances of these symbolic layers. Was the emphasis more on purification, fertility, or royal legitimacy? The truth, as often is the case, is likely that all these meanings were intertwined, shifting in prominence depending on the specific context and the needs of the time. You can almost feel the layers of meaning unfurling, like the petals of a fragrant blossom, as you consider what this sacred, scented downpour truly represented to the ancient Javanese. It was a multi-layered blessing, a sign, and a profound reassurance, all contained within the delicate mist of a perfumed rain. And in understanding its symbolism, you begin to grasp the deep spiritual heart that beat beneath the grand rituals of these ancient kingdoms. We've journeyed deep into the spiritual and symbolic heart of the perfumed rain rituals. Now, let's take a slight detour into the practicalities, or rather the frustrating lack thereof, by examining the archaeological clues and debates. You're now donning your imaginary archaeologist's hat, perhaps sifting through dusty archives or examining ancient stone structures, seeking tangible evidence of these elaborate ceremonies. Imagine the challenge, trying to find physical proof of something as ephemeral as scented rain from centuries ago. It's a bit like trying to find the fossilized remains of a particularly good mood. The truth is, direct archaeological evidence for the perfumed rain rituals, as described in their full grandeur, is incredibly scarce. Unlike durable stone temples or pottery shards, ritualistic perfumes and the ephemeral act of rain don't leave much behind for future archaeologists. You won't find a perfumed rain kit, model 1000 AD, buried in the earth, complete with instructions. This scarcity leads to a fascinating landscape of open scholarly debate and a reliance on indirect evidence. What archaeologists do find are remnants of the larger ritualistic complex. We have the majestic temple structures like Borobudur and Prambanan, which clearly served as sites for grand ceremonies. The intricate carvings and reliefs on these temples often depict scenes of court life, religious processions, and offerings to deities. These provide tantalizing glimpses into the visual aspects of ancient Javanese rituals. You can trace the figures, imagining the silks and the jewels, but you can't smell the air. We also find evidence of elaborate water management systems, sacred pools, complex irrigation channels, and bathing places. These testify to the profound reverence for water and its central role in ancient Javanese life and spirituality. It's not a huge leap to imagine these systems being incorporated into rituals involving water, perhaps even for the dispersal of sacred liquids. But were these specifically for perfumed water? The evidence often remains circumstantial. Historians still argue whether certain features in temple complexes, often interpreted as bathing pools, could have also served a function in these elaborate atmospheric rituals. The challenge lies in the nature of the primary artifact of the perfumed rain, the scent itself. Organic materials like flowers, resins, and spices degrade over time, leaving no trace. Even if ancient Javanese kings had a colossal perfume sprayer, it would have long since corroded into unrecognizable dust. This forces scholars to rely heavily on textual sources, which, as we'll discuss in a later section, can be sparse and often metaphorical rather than literal instructions. It's like trying to understand a concert from its program notes alone. The debates among historians and archaeologists are lively. Were these rituals truly grand spectacles involving actual scented downpours, or were the perfumed rains more symbolic, perhaps referring to the fragrance of immense quantities of incense burned during a natural rainy season? Some argue for literal interpretations, citing the cultural significance of scent and water. Others lean towards more metaphorical readings, suggesting that the descriptions in ancient texts might be poetic exaggerations rather than factual accounts of atmospheric engineering. You can almost hear the academic arguments raging in dusty university halls, far from the humid Javanese jungle. Despite the lack of concrete archaeological smoking guns, the collective weight of indirect evidence from temple architecture, water systems, and limited textual references strongly suggests that rituals involving water and powerful aromas were indeed central to ancient Javanese royal practice. It's less like finding a dinosaur bone and more like finding a footprint in the mud. You know something big and interesting was there, even if the direct evidence has long vanished into the fragrant winds of time. And isn't that just a little bit more mysterious and intriguing anyway? Given the scarcity of direct archaeological evidence for the perfumed rain, we must turn to other sources to reconstruct these fascinating rituals. This brings us to the realm of oral traditions and surviving lore. You're now settling in, perhaps around a crackling fire in a modern Javanese village, listening to the elders recount stories passed down through generations. Imagine the whispers of the past, subtly shifting and evolving with each retelling, yet still carrying echoes of ancient truths. Unlike stone temples or written inscriptions, oral traditions are fluid, dynamic, and incredibly resilient. They live in the collective memory of a people, passed from grandparent to grandchild, from teacher to student. While they might not provide precise historical details, they often preserve the essence of past beliefs, the emotional resonance of ancient practices, and the deep cultural significance of phenomena like the perfumed rain. It's like a game of historical telephone, but with a surprising amount of core information still making it to the end. In modern Java, you can still find remnants of these ancient beliefs and practices. While the grand royal perfumed rain rituals may no longer be performed in their original form, the reverence for water, the significance of certain aromatic plants in ceremonies, and the concept of a king's spiritual role persist in various forms. You might encounter local village rituals for rainmaking, perhaps simpler affairs involving offerings at a sacred spring or the burning of fragrant incense. These might be distant echoes, mere whispers of the elaborate spectacles of old, but they carry the same underlying intentions: to connect with the divine, to ensure prosperity, and to maintain balance. Sometimes these traditions are embedded in folk tales or local legends. A story might describe a mythical king who could make flowers bloom in barren lands, or whose reign was marked by miraculous rainfall. While not literal historical accounts, these narratives can reflect a societal memory of rulers who were perceived to possess extraordinary spiritual powers, perhaps even hinting at the real-life perfumed rain ceremonies that bolstered such perceptions. It's like finding a blurry, faded photograph of a grand ancestor. You can't make out every detail, but you get a strong sense of their presence. The challenge with oral traditions, of course, is their inherent mutability. Details can change, figures can merge, and historical facts can blend seamlessly with mythological elements over centuries. What was once a specific ritual might become a symbolic story, or vice versa. Historians still argue about the reliability of using contemporary oral traditions to reconstruct ancient practices. While they offer invaluable insights into cultural continuity, they must be approached with caution, always cross-referenced with other forms of evidence where possible. It's a bit like trying to piece together a complex puzzle when some pieces are made of cloud. Despite their elusive nature, these surviving fragments of lore offer a unique window into the ancient Javanese mindset. They show that the fascination with rain, with the king's spiritual power, and with the enchanting properties of fragrance, was not merely a fleeting trend, but a deeply ingrained aspect of their cultural identity. You can almost feel the continuity, the unbroken thread of belief stretching back through time, connecting you to those ancient people who stood under a sky that might have rained perfume. And in that connection, even through faint whispers, the magic of the past continues to live. It's certainly a more romantic way to learn history than dry textbooks, isn't it? While oral traditions offer tantalizing whispers of the past, a more concrete, albeit often enigmatic, source for understanding ancient Javanese rituals comes from Sanskrit texts, glimpses of practice. You're now in a quieter, more scholarly setting, perhaps in a royal library filled with palm leaf manuscripts, feeling the delicate rustle of ancient wisdom. Imagine poring over these brittle inscribed leaves, trying to decipher cryptic verses and kingly pronouncements that hint at practices as grand as perfumed rain. The arrival of Hindu and Buddhist influences in Java, as we discussed, brought with it the use of Sanskrit, the classical language of India, for religious and administrative purposes. Many royal inscriptions, charters, and religious texts from ancient Javanese kingdoms were written in Sanskrit, or at least heavily influenced by it. These inscriptions, carved onto stone steles or hammered onto copper plates, served as official records, land grants, and dedications to deities. They are invaluable primary sources, offering direct windows into the beliefs and practices of the time. However, these texts are often cryptic and indirect when it comes to detailed ritual instructions. They might mention a king performing a yajna, fire ritual, or making offerings for the prosperity of the realm, but they rarely provide a step-by-step guide to, say, preparing perfumed rain. Think of it like reading a modern government decree. It tells you what happened, but not necessarily how all the behind-the-scenes magic was performed. They are records of state and spiritual power, not user manuals. For instance, an inscription might praise a king for his piety and his ability to ensure abundant harvests, implying his successful connection with the rain deities. It might mention the lavishness of his offerings, which we know would include aromatic substances. It might even use metaphorical language, describing the blessings of the gods falling like a rain of fragrant flowers or a shower of heavenly nectar. While these are often poetic flourishes, historians still argue whether such phrases, common in ancient Indian literature too, might subtly allude to actual rituals involving aromatic water dispersal. Is it merely a poetic device, or a hint at something real? This is where the detective work begins. Furthermore, some Sanskrit texts describe various types of Hindu and Buddhist purification rites, water rituals, and the use of abhisheka ritual bathing, anointing, with sacred liquids. These provide a general framework for understanding the ritualistic use of water and might suggest the broader context within which the perfumed rain ceremony developed. While none explicitly detail perfumed rain, the elements are certainly there: sacred water, purification, divine invocation, and the use of auspicious substances. It's like finding all the ingredients for a cake, but no recipe. The challenge for scholars lies in interpreting these often fragmented and elusive references. Sanskrit is a complex language, and ancient texts frequently employ multiple layers of meaning, allegory, and religious symbolism. Deciphering these texts requires not only linguistic expertise, but also a deep understanding of ancient Javanese and Indian religious cosmology. Historians still argue whether the absence of explicit, detailed descriptions of perfumed rain in some prominent texts indicates that the practice was less widespread than imagined, or simply that such specific ritualistic knowledge was considered esoteric and passed down orally, not typically recorded in public inscriptions. Despite the challenges, these Sanskrit texts offer invaluable glimpses into the spiritual lives of ancient Javanese kings and their courts. They confirm the importance of royal rituals for legitimization, the profound connection to divine forces, and the sophisticated religious landscape that nurtured practices like the perfumed rain. You can almost feel the weight of history in your hands, trying to piece together the aromatic puzzle from these ancient whispers inscribed on a fragile leaf. It's a bit like being a cosmic cryptographer, isn't it? We've journeyed through the zenith of ancient Javanese royal rituals, including the captivating perfumed rain ceremonies. But, like all eras, this one too faced its inevitable decline. Let's now explore the fading of grand rituals. You're now sensing a shift in the historical currents, a slow ebb in the tide of elaborate ceremonial practices. Imagine the once bustling temple courts growing quieter, the grand processions becoming less frequent, and the profound, multi-sensory rituals gradually becoming whispers of the past. This wasn't an abrupt cessation, but a gradual process influenced by a confluence of factors: political, economic, and religious. One of the primary reasons for the decline was the rise of new political centres and shifting power dynamics within the Javanese archipelago. As kingdoms rose and fell, and power gravitated to different regions, the resources and political will required to stage such immense ceremonies might have waned. Think of it, building and maintaining those elaborate temple mountains and sponsoring year-round rituals was incredibly expensive and labour-intensive. A less prosperous, or more politically unstable kingdom might simply not have been able to afford the same level of grandeur. Another significant factor was the gradual shift in religious landscapes. While Hindu Buddhism continued to be influential, new spiritual currents began to arrive, most notably Islam, starting from around the 13th century onwards. Islam's emphasis on direct worship, the five pillars, and a less centralized ritualistic clergy differed significantly from the highly ritualized, king-centric practices of the earlier Hindu-Buddhist courts. As more people converted and Islamic sultanates gained power, the grand state-sponsored rituals, like the perfumed rain ceremonies, would naturally lose their central role and prominence. It was less of a sudden break and more like a slow, respectful reprioritization of spiritual expression. Furthermore, there might have been a natural evolution of the rituals themselves. Perhaps certain practices became more internalized, less public, or transformed into simpler forms. The emphasis might have shifted from direct divine invocation to more symbolic or contemplative practices. It's common for complex rituals to streamline over centuries, sometimes due to practicality, sometimes due to changing spiritual interpretations. Perhaps they realized that simply hoping for rain and then burning some incense was almost as effective and considerably cheaper. The very concept of the king as a cosmic conductor, while powerful, might also have evolved. As more pragmatic governance structures emerged, and as external influences brought new ideas about statecraft, the king's role might have become more administrative and less overtly spiritual. While still revered, the need for him to literally make it rain perfume to prove his legitimacy might have diminished. Historians still argue about the precise moment and primary cause for the decline of these specific, large-scale perfumed rain rituals. Was it primarily political change, economic strain, or the inexorable tide of new religious conversions? Likely, it was a complex interplay of all these forces. You can almost feel the quietude descending over the ancient temple sites as their primary purpose slowly faded. The grand processions became memories, the elaborate offerings grew simpler, and the perfumed rain became a legend, a story whispered in the villages rather than a witnessed event. It's a poignant reminder that even the most powerful and captivating traditions are subject to the relentless march of time, eventually giving way to new beliefs, new kings, and new ways of connecting with the divine. The sense still lingered in the collective memory, but the magnificent showers ceased to fall from the Javanese skies. While the grand perfumed rain rituals faded into history, their essence, symbolism, and cultural significance didn't simply vanish. Instead, they underwent a fascinating metamorphosis, leaving their imprint on subsequent expressions of Javanese creativity. Let's now explore their influence on later Javanese arts. You're stepping into a world where the echoes of ancient ceremonies are found not in stone temples, but in the graceful movements of dancers, the intricate patterns of textiles, and the captivating narratives of literature. Imagine the subtle yet persistent thread of history weaving its way into the very fabric of Javanese artistic expression. The rich imagery and profound symbolism of the royal rituals, including the perfumed rain, became a wellspring of inspiration for artists across various mediums. Take Javanese dance, for instance. The elegant, highly stylized court dances often depict scenes from ancient epics or mythological tales, many of which would have been intimately connected to the religious and royal narratives that underpinned the perfumed rain ceremonies. You can almost see a dancer, with fluid hand gestures and precise footwork, embodying a deity or a revered king, their movements perhaps echoing the slow, deliberate procession or the reverent postures of the ancient rituals. The very essence of purification, divine blessing, and cosmic harmony, once performed in grand ceremonies, found new life in the choreography of a royal performance. Then there's textile art, particularly the renowned Javanese batik. The intricate patterns and symbolic motifs found in batik cloths often carry deep philosophical and spiritual meanings. Some patterns are reserved for royalty, depicting auspicious symbols of prosperity, fertility, or divine protection. It's not a stretch to imagine that motifs representing rain, water, clouds, or the specific flowers and spices used in the perfumed rituals might have been subtly incorporated into these designs, serving as a constant visual reminder of those powerful blessings. Imagine wearing a cloth whose patterns subtly evoked the very concept of sacred scented rain, a wearable blessing. Javanese literature and poetry, often expressed through ancient Kawi texts or later forms, also bore the imprint of these rituals. The descriptions of kings, their divine powers, and their ability to bring prosperity to the land would undoubtedly draw upon the imagery of successful rain-making ceremonies. Poetic verses might allude to heavenly dew or fragrant showers, not just as metaphors for blessings, but as subtle callbacks to the actual perfumed rain rituals that were once central to royal legitimation and communal well-being. Historians still argue about the precise degree to which literary descriptions reflect historical ritualistic practice versus artistic license. It's a delicate balance of interpretation. Even in the performing arts like wayang kulit, shadow puppetry, the archetypes of the wise, powerful king who ensures cosmic balance and the divine interventions that bring prosperity or calamity would have been deeply influenced by the spiritual narratives enacted in rituals like the perfumed rain ceremony. The very structure of these narratives, often portraying the triumph of good over evil through divine aid, resonates with the idea of a king successfully invoking heavenly blessings. You can almost feel the cultural continuity, the way ancient practices, even those that eventually faded, continued to inform and enrich the artistic expressions of a civilization. The perfumed rain, though no longer a regular event, continued to live on in the collective imagination, inspiring beauty, narrative, and meaning across centuries of Javanese art. It's a testament to the enduring power of symbolism and the way profound human experiences, whether witnessed directly or heard through whispers, shape the very soul of a culture. And isn't it wonderful that a long-gone ritual can still spark such beauty? While the grand ancient rituals have faded, and their essence has diffused into Javanese art. The human desire to connect with the past and invoke blessings remains. This leads us to consider modern interpretations and revival. You're now back in contemporary Java, feeling the hustle and bustle of modern life, yet sensing the deep undercurrent of spiritual tradition that still flows through the island. Imagine efforts to reconstruct, reinterpret, or simply honor these ancient practices in a world vastly different from that of the cosmic kings. It's important to note that a full, literal revival of the exact perfumed rain rituals as performed by ancient kings is highly unlikely and perhaps not even desired. The socio-political and religious contexts have changed too profoundly. However, there are various ways in which aspects of these ancient traditions are being reinterpreted or given new life in modern Javanese spiritual practices. One area is in traditional Javanese mysticism and spiritual communities. There are still groups and individuals who delve into ancient texts, seek to understand the esoteric meanings of old rituals, and practice forms of meditation or spiritual exercises inspired by ancestral traditions. While they may not be making it rain perfume on a grand scale, they might incorporate specific aromatic offerings, water purification rites, or chants, reminiscent of older practices into their personal or communal devotions. These are often quieter, more internalized forms of practice, focused on personal spiritual growth rather than state legitimation. Another way is through cultural preservation and performance. As we discussed, the themes and aesthetics of these rituals have influenced Javanese art. Modern dance troupes might choreograph pieces that evoke the grandeur of royal processions and rain-making ceremonies, using traditional music and costumes. These performances are not rituals themselves, but artistic recreations that honor the past and educate contemporary audiences about their rich heritage. You might see a theatrical interpretation of the king invoking rain, complete with elaborate costumes and symbolic use of water and scents, a beautiful homage to a bygone era. Furthermore, there's a growing interest in Javanese traditional medicine, jamu, and herbalism. Many of the fragrant spices and plants used in ancient rituals were also valued for their medicinal properties. This modern interest in traditional remedies connects back to the ancient understanding of flora's power and might, in a secular way, echo the reverence for these aromatic substances. You could be drinking a herbal concoction today that uses ingredients that once scented a royal ritual. The concept of spiritual tourism also plays a role. While not a direct revival of the rituals, sites like Borobudur and Prambanan continue to be places of immense spiritual significance, drawing both Javanese pilgrims and international visitors. People come to meditate, to offer prayers, or simply to experience the profound spiritual atmosphere of these ancient sacred centers, often performing personal acts of reverence that might subtly echo ancient practices. Historians still argue about the extent to which modern interpretations truly capture the original intent of these rituals versus projecting contemporary values onto the past. It's a delicate balance of respect and reinterpretation. You can almost feel the gentle pulse of tradition in the modern landscape, adapting, transforming, but never entirely disappearing. The echoes of the perfumed rain, though faint, can still be found in the quiet devotions, the vibrant performances, and the enduring respect for the deep spiritual heritage of Java. It's a testament to the resilience of culture, proving that even a ritual as elaborate as making it rain perfume can continue to inspire, even if in new and unexpected ways. It's certainly more interesting than watching reruns, right? From the whispers of revival, let's now cast our gaze on how these ancient aromatic stories intersect with the present. Tourism and heritage, preserving the past. You're now encountering the ancient wonders of Java through a modern lens, perhaps as a visitor navigating the grand stone pathways of Borobudur or Prambanan, camera in hand. Imagine the careful balance between presenting a living history and accommodating the curious gaze of the world, all while trying to convey the profound significance of practices like the perfumed rain. Javanese ancient history, particularly its monumental temple complexes, is a cornerstone of Indonesia's cultural heritage and a major draw for tourism. Sites like Borobudur and Prambanan are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, meticulously preserved and attracting millions of visitors each year. These sites are not just relics, they are powerful reminders of a glorious past, embodying the spiritual and artistic achievements of ancient Javanese kingdoms. The challenge, and the opportunity, lies in how these sites and the stories associated with them are presented to the modern world. For practices like the perfumed rain rituals, which are largely intangible and no longer performed in their original form, the task of preserving their historical memory becomes an act of interpretation and education. Tour guides, museum exhibits, and historical markers strive to paint a picture of these elaborate ceremonies, using the architectural remnants as a backdrop. You might see detailed dioramas, artistic reconstructions, or even short films attempting to recreate the grandeur and spiritual intensity of a royal rainmaking event. Efforts are made to emphasize the multifaceted significance of these rituals, their religious depth, their political importance for royal legitimacy, and their connection to the agricultural prosperity of the land. This often involves explaining the symbolism of water, the use of various spices and aromatics, and the role of the king as a cosmic intermediary. It's about translating a complex ancient worldview into terms understandable to a diverse global audience. Historians still argue about the nuances of presenting such complex spiritual practices to a mass tourism audience, how much simplification is too much, and how can the authentic spiritual context be preserved amidst the commercial aspects of tourism. It's a tightrope walk. Furthermore, cultural events and festivals, while not direct revivals, often draw inspiration from these ancient traditions, helping to keep their memory alive. Perhaps a modern festival might include a symbolic water ritual or the burning of fragrant incense, subtly referencing the grand ceremonies of old. These events contribute to the broader narrative of cultural heritage, fostering a sense of pride among local communities and providing engaging experiences for visitors. You might encounter a modern Javanese dance performance that visually echoes the sacred processions, helping you to connect with the historical echoes of the perfumed rain. The income generated from tourism also plays a crucial role in the ongoing conservation and restoration of these ancient sites, ensuring that the physical remnants of these civilizations, including the temple mountains where these rituals unfolded, are preserved for future generations. It's a virtuous cycle. Visitors come to see the history, and their presence helps fund its protection. You can almost feel the weight of centuries of history in the stone beneath your feet, knowing that these efforts are keeping the stories of cosmic kings and perfumed rain alive for many more years to come. It's a powerful way to make the past tangible, isn't it? Much more interactive than just reading about it in a dusty old book. Having explored the tangible efforts to preserve ancient history through tourism and heritage, let's now broaden our perspective and reflect on a more universal, timeless aspect that underpins the perfumed rain rituals: the enduring mystique of rain. You're now invited to look beyond the specific historical context and consider humanity's perennial fascination with this fundamental natural phenomenon. Imagine the feeling of those first cool drops on your skin after a long, sweltering day, a sensation that transcends centuries and cultures. For agricultural societies across the globe, from ancient Java to the modern rice fields of Vietnam where you currently find yourself, rain is not merely a meteorological event, it is the very essence of life, prosperity, and survival. It transforms dry, cracked earth into vibrant, fertile fields. It fills rivers, sustains forests, and provides the water necessary for human existence. This fundamental dependence has, throughout history, imbued rain with profound spiritual significance, making it a powerful symbol of divine blessing, renewal, and fertility. You can almost hear the collective sigh of relief in any farming community when the clouds finally open up. The mystique of rain lies in its unpredictable, yet utterly vital nature. It falls from the sky, a seemingly unbidden gift from above, connecting the heavens to the earth. This inherent connection between the celestial and the terrestrial has led countless cultures to associate rain with deities, spirits, or cosmic forces. Whether it's the Javanese invoking rain gods, Native American tribes performing rain dances, or ancient Egyptians relying on the Nile's annual inundation, humanity has always sought to understand, predict, and, if possible, influence this life-giving force. It's a bit like trying to get your internet to work when it's buffering. You know it's coming, but you really, really want it now. The addition of perfume to rain, as in the Javanese rituals, elevates this natural phenomenon to an even higher, more sacred plane. It transforms the mundane into the miraculous, a tangible sign of extraordinary divine favour. The scent acts as a bridge, making the unseen blessings of the heavens perceptible to human senses. It turns a simple downpour into a sacred showering, a full sensory experience of divine grace. Historians still argue about the precise indigenous origins of some rain-making rituals across Southeast Asia. Were they a widespread ancient animistic practice that simply integrated Hindu-Buddhist elements, or did the more elaborate forms arrive primarily with Indian influences? Regardless, the core human desire for rain and its mystical reverence remains a constant. Even in our modern, technologically advanced world, the fascination with rain persists. Think of the collective joy when a drought finally breaks, or the simple pleasure of listening to the rhythm of raindrops on a roof. We still use phrases like raining blessings or a shower of good fortune, unknowingly echoing the ancient sentiments that imbued rain with divine significance. The appeal of a gentle, cooling rain, especially in humid climates like the one you're currently experiencing, is universal. You can almost feel the timeless connection to those ancient Javanese as you reflect on the enduring power of rain. Their elaborate perfumed rituals were perhaps the ultimate expression of this universal reverence, a sophisticated attempt to collaborate with the heavens and ensure the continued bounty of their world. It reminds us that some fundamental human needs and spiritual yearnings remain unchanged, even across millennia. And that, my friend, is a story as old as the first drop of water on dry earth. We've journeyed through the intricate history of ancient Javanese kings and their captivating perfumed rain rituals, from the very first stirrings of animistic belief to the grand fusion of Hindu Buddhism, the intricate preparation of aromatic wonders, and the ultimate descent of scented blessings. We've seen how these magnificent ceremonies shaped a kingdom, legitimized its rulers, and then, slowly, faded into the annals of history, leaving echoes in art and oral tradition. Now, as the narrative draws to a close, let's consider how these ancient practices, though seemingly distant, still leave their echoes in the modern world. You're still here, feeling the gentle hum of the fan, perhaps the distant sound of a passing motorbike, grounding you back in contemporary Buck Nin. But if you close your eyes, can't you still feel a whisper of that ancient humidity, catch a phantom whiff of sandalwood and jasmine, or hear the faint echo of a gong? The history we've explored tonight isn't just about dusty facts and forgotten rituals. It's about fundamental human experiences that continue to resonate. Think about the human desire for control over nature. While we now rely on meteorology and advanced irrigation systems, the ancient Javanese kings' attempt to command the rain, to literally sweeten its arrival, speaks to a deep, primal yearning to influence the unpredictable forces that shape our lives. We might not perform perfumed rain rituals, but we still search for ways to manage the weather, mitigate natural disasters, and find comfort in times of uncertainty. The methods change, but the underlying human impulse to seek security and influence our environment remains remarkably constant. Consider, too, the enduring power of scent. Even in our modern world, where smells are often mass-produced and synthetic, the deep connection between aroma, memory, and emotion is undeniable. A particular fragrance can instantly transport you, evoke a feeling, or conjure a forgotten scene. The ancient Javanese understood this implicitly, harnessing the profound power of natural aromatics to elevate rituals, purify spaces, and communicate with the divine. Their perfumed rain was perhaps the ultimate expression of scent as a spiritual and social tool, a concept that still subtly influences our use of perfumes, incense, and even scented candles today, albeit for more mundane purposes. Historians still argue whether the aesthetic appeal of the perfumed rain was as important as its spiritual efficacy in cementing its place in royal ritual. It likely served both masters beautifully. And what about the role of leadership? The Javanese king, as a cosmic conductor, carried the immense burden of ensuring cosmic harmony for his people. While modern leaders don't usually claim divine mandate or make it rain perfume, the expectation that they provide stability, prosperity, and a sense of collective well-being still persists. The desire for a leader who can deliver, who can navigate challenges and bring good fortune, is a timeless expectation, even if the methods have shifted from elaborate rituals to policy debates and economic indicators. Ultimately, the story of the perfumed rain rituals is a fascinating window into a worldview where the sacred and the mundane were inextricably intertwined, where every action had a cosmic ripple, and where the human realm was in constant, deliberate dialogue with the divine. It reminds us of the ingenuity, the spiritual depth, and the incredible artistry of ancient civilizations. It highlights how humans have always sought meaning, comfort, and connection in the world around them, using whatever tools and beliefs they possessed. So, as you drift deeper into sleep, perhaps you can carry a faint echo of that ancient, fragrant world with you. A world where kings literally commanded scented blessings from the heavens, where the earth breathed with spirits, and where every drop of rain carried a profound message. It's a reminder that history isn't just a collection of dates and names, it's a living, breathing tapestry of human experience, full of wonder, mystery, and, sometimes, the sweet, sweet scent of a distant, perfumed rain. The gentle hum of the fan is a steady companion now, a soft, rhythmic whisper in the quiet of your room. The images of ancient Java, of kings and temples, of fragrant spices and sacred rain, begin to dissolve, softening at the edges, like old photographs fading in the dim light. The intricate details of rituals and the complexities of cosmic balance gently recede, leaving only a soothing impression of a world deeply connected to its land and its spirits. Feel the warmth of your covers, the comfort of your bed, as the last vestiges of the historical journey slowly, peacefully melt away. There's nothing left to do now, but let your mind unspool, letting go of every thought, every lingering question, as you settle into the soft embrace of the night. The stories are done, the learning complete. All that remains is the quiet stillness and the promise of rest.